Well, I think I would want to be remembered for my preservation accomplishments and the books I've written, as well as my own body of work. I've tried to keep that same sense of quality, attention to the user and the site, and I hopefully with my body of work that is apparent. And but yeah, really it's the preservation movements that hopefully will continue down through time. I will tell you a little bit about the neighborhood. Crestwood Hills was begun in 1946 by 4 studio musicians returning from the war. At that time there was a great housing shortage, so they decided to pool their resources and buy an acre of land, put a house on each corner of that land, and then have some sort of recreation area or pool in the center. They hired the architects, A. Quincy Jones, Whitney Smith, and Edgardo Contini. So they kept control of the community as it was being built. It was called Mutual Housing Association. So this was built as one large rectangular space. It's where the architects' helpers were worked, and one of the draftsmen was Jim Charlton, who was a Wrightian apprentice, and he is pretty much responsible for this particular design. Eventually there were 80 of the houses built with the MHA design, and then the other houses were what I call infill houses. And we had 2 Richard Neutras, we have 3 Craig Elwood houses, which still exist, beautifully preserved, and then a lot of the really accomplished mid-century architects in Los Angeles at that time. I have written several books. I wrote one on Crestwood Hills, published by Angel City Press. The first book I wrote was on A. Quincy Jones by Fiden Press, 2002. And then I wrote the book on Fred Lyman, came out a couple years ago. And I've just finished one on David Roberts, the mid-century architect, my father-in-law, mid-century architect in Cambridge, and that'll be published hopefully this year. That's what it's like. Every day it's a treat to wake up in this house. And fortunately the morning sun hits this side of the house. So you wake up with just brilliant sunshine and surrounded by nature. It was very important for these architects to really create an indoor-outdoor space. So primarily because the houses were so small on such small lots. And another trick they used is that they oriented them at different angles to each other and to the street. So there's a greater sense of side yards and rear yards because you can't really sense a boundary. And once the landscaping has grown in, then there's really a sense of privacy between the houses. The site, I think, is more important. The site is the generator. It should be for a good architect to situate a house as far as the direction, the views. The second is the user requirements. The architecture develops with those sort of constraints, as you might say. It's a challenge. Architecture is always a challenge, but if you have a good site, half that battle is won already. And a good client is the other half of the battle. And hopefully it's not a battle.